Hating on the sequels has been an enjoyable pastime for many Star Wars fans for 5 years now, and although in most cases it's harmless fun, sometimes it breeds malice and toxicity, especially when people decide to attack and threaten the actors and creators online, and boycott movies that haven't even come out yet, which is behavior that has just never been acceptable, and shows that you have the mind of a child. Because of this, I have made it my mission to try and show people on the internet why the Star Wars sequel trilogy isn't nearly as bad as everyone says it is. Therefore today I will be making an in-depth analysis of the Rey vs Kylo Ren fight in The Force Awakens, because I've seen it being shit on so many times. Like so many times. However, I just want to quickly make it clear that I don't just like the sequels blindly. They have flaws and I'm well aware of them, but people often take these flaws and over-exaggerate them. It's also not only the sequels that have toxic haters, because all the other trilogies do too, and it's horrible. However, I personally choose to defend the sequels in my videos because they're the least represented on YouTube. I still love all the other Star Wars movies, please don't assume otherwise. So yes, I've said what I needed to say, so let's just begin dissecting the Rey vs Kylo Ren fight. I'll also be talking about Finn's part in the scene as well. But first, let's see who would theoretically win this fight. Like if the fight was completely fair and all parties were at their best both physically and mentally. What would they all bring to the table? Let's start with Rey. So Rey was of course a scavenger, which has given her some levels of agility, which we can see when she's traversing the fallen AT-AT. More than that, we know she's proficient at fighting with a staff because we see her fighting with a staff to defend herself against a group of thugs. Knowing how to use a staff will help her know how to use a lightsaber, because both demand similar movements and are similar in shape. This means that Rey at least has experience in combat, which does more than you think. By fighting her whole life, she learns how to predict attacks based on body movements, how to block, parry and counter incoming attacks, how to dodge, how to be aware during combat, and how to pivot. Even though she's not trained with a lightsaber specifically, she still has quite a bit of combat experience. This scavenger life has also provided Rey with a peak physical condition and strength, so yeah, physically she's not a pushover. Additionally, she has just realized that she can use the Force and use it pretty well, because she used the mind trick and it worked on a fucking stormtrooper. This feat would make anyone confident beyond belief, because yeah, why wouldn't it? Imagine if you suddenly found out you had powers. You'd feel like the king of the world. This newly found confidence is why she even tries to use the Force during their battle. It's not just convenient plot armor to help her escape Kylo. So yeah, Rey is looking pretty good coming into this fight. Then we move on to Finn, who as an ex-stormtrooper is likely also in peak physical condition in terms of strength, but also flexibility, agility, and speed. Physical prowess is not just how much you can lift. Adding on to that, due to the less than friendly reaction from his fellow stormtrooper, aka TR8R, we can assume that they were likely on the same team, or at least trained together, because how else would he have known what Finn looks like without his helmet on? Alright, yeah, you can make the point that maybe they showed Finn's face to the stormtroopers in order to catch him, but then why wouldn't any of the other stormtroopers recognize him? So yeah, it's pretty certain that they at least knew each other from their time in the First Order, so that should mean that Finn is also trained in using that cool lightning baton thingy. This also explains how he was able to use a lightsaber decently well, because he has combat in one-handed weapons. So yes, Finn walking into this fight is not a pushover either. Now we move on to Kylo, who was trained from a young age by Luke Skywalker to control and harness the Force, and also learn how to use a lightsaber. It can be presumed that this Jedi training likely wasn't on the same level as the training was during the Republic era, because Luke just wasn't on the same level, and Luke himself had also just been trained by a Jedi crash course. However, it was still at a very high level. After Kylo murdered his classmates and left the new Jedi Order, he went on to be trained as a Sith by Snoke. Even though Snoke says that his training is not done yet, this basically just means that Kylo is a fucking badass. He is well versed in both the ways of the Jedi and those of the Sith. We've seen that skill-wise, he's leagues ahead of Rey when it comes to using the Force, but he's also very likely to lose his temper and underestimate his opponents. So yes, going into this fight, on paper, Kylo Ren is the clear favorite. Even though he's fighting two pretty tough opponents at the same time, him being trained since childhood makes him the clear winner in a theoretical fight. In a fair fight, Kylo would win any day of the week. We see this in The Rise of Skywalker when Kylo beats Rey in a fight. He almost kills her before some divine intervention. However, This fight is not a fair fight. Before their fight, Kylo Ren was shot by a motherfucking Wookiee bowcaster. They show us on multiple occasions throughout this film what this weapon can actually do. It can blow up rocks, it can send people flying, and Kylo Ren took a bolt right to the fucking stomach. Even with his abs of steel, that shit has got to hurt. He takes it like a fucking champ, but of course it's going to affect him physically. The dude has just murdered his own father, which no matter what you say isn't just instantly gonna fuel his power. He cared about his father, he was conflicted. Killing Han took its toll on Kylo. He knew that it was the only way to solidify the darkness within him, but it took more out of him than he thought it would. And on top of that, he was just shot by a fucking bowcaster. Imagine that. You've just had to kill your own father to become the CEO of an evil but powerful company, and then out of nowhere you get shot by a bazooka in the stomach, and you somehow survive. Would you be ready for a fight after that? No, you fucking wouldn't. Kylo is bleeding all the way throughout their fight. He's invisible pain. And before any of you come with the argument that pain and suffering gives power to the dark side, I'll stop you and ask this. Did Count Dooku get stronger when his hands were chopped off? Was he just magically able to best Anakin because he was suffering and in pain? No, of course not. He couldn't fucking pick up anything. He was hurting like a son of a bitch and was basically rendered incapable of fighting properly. Yes, dark side users get more powerful when they're suffering. It happened with Anakin, but it's only true to some extent, and it definitely becomes less true given Kylo's circumstances, with the patricides and inner conflict and all. Kylo was seriously injured before this fight, and yes, he was banging on it to make himself stronger, but it was still a deformity. It ultimately worked to weaken him in battle. He would have been in such a better position if he hadn't been shot. J.J. Abrams knew this. He knew that he'd have to disable Kylo to give Finn and Rey a chance. However, even with this injury, Kylo was still stronger than Rey and Finn combined. And we see this throughout the fight. The reason Kylo lost was because of his arrogance. Alright, so the fight begins with Kylo force pushing Rey against a tree, and people have been questioning that since this was so easy for him to do, then why did he lose the fight to Rey? Well, because like we said, Kylo is better than Rey. Rey has no way to counter a force push, especially not before she fully opens up to the force later in the fight. Kylo isn't trying to kill Rey, he's just knocking her out so he can fight Finn. And is also later trying to win her over to the dark side, so yeah, he's not trying to kill her. When they're evenly matched, Kylo beats Rey, however, he gets complacent and loses his momentum. But we'll get into that a bit more later. Let's start with the fight. For the whole fight against Finn, Kylo is toying with him. That's why he doesn't just force push him like he did with Rey. Kylo's had a very shit week. He failed many times at retrieving the map to Luke. He failed to interrogate Rey, who later escapes her cell. He murdered his father and he was just shot for goodness sake. No wonder he's grumpy. And right there in front of him stands a traitor, someone who has resisted Kylo's authority, ran away from it, and actively fought against it. He could have made the fight quick and just kill Finn. But at this point, Kylo needs more than just that. He wants to see Finn suffer, to make him pay. And so, he plays with his food. The first time Kylo brings Finn down, he could have easily killed him right there, but he didn't because he wasn't done playing. If you look at Kylo's face throughout the fight, it's so nonchalant, like this isn't even a challenge for him. He easily pins Finn against a tree and slowly tortures him by burning his shoulder. Again, Kylo could easily kill him here, but he doesn't because he's not done playing. Mercy and a quick death isn't often the Sith way. Finn breaks out and gets a lucky shot on Kylo, which Kylo was not expecting. He realized here that he was growing too overconfident and that it was beginning to become dangerous for him, so he decided to end it for the time being. Just look at how easily Kylo disarms Finn. Not a care in the world. Finn is just not on Kylo's level. Alright, and then Kylo slices Finn on the back, which a lot of people are angry about because a lightsaber should kill him, but have you not been paying attention? He doesn't want to kill Finn. At least not yet. I have never personally seen this strike as being a strike with intent to kill, but rather to debilitate Finn. Now my only problem here is that this strike should have had more of a consequence on Finn in the future, because in The Last Jedi it's never really a problem. After he wakes up, he seems perfectly fine. That strike likely hit his spinal cord, so some sort of disability would have been nice and accurate. But that's a problem with The Last Jedi, not this fight. People hated on this fight long before The Last Jedi came out, so yeah, Finn and Kylo's fight makes complete sense. Kylo could have easily destroyed him, but he was toying with him instead due to Finn's betrayal, which at one instance led him to be too arrogant. Kylo should be far better than Finn in this fight, and he is far better than Finn in this fight. It's shown to us during the fight, but as always, some people choose to ignore what happens in these movies and just makes up their own assumptions, and honestly, it's childish. However, now we move into the Kylo versus Rey fight. So it starts with Rey force pulling the lightsaber towards her, and then the force theme plays, and oh god, I was so hyped when I first watched this. However, some people think this shot is bullshit bullshit because for some reason they think that the movie wants them to believe that Rey is better at using the Force than Kylo, and that's why she gets the lightsaber and not him. But come on, people. First of all, Kylo isn't trying his hardest because he's done this shit before and he's arrogant. It should be a piece of cake for him to force pull this small item towards him. And meanwhile, Rey is giving it her absolute all since it's her first attempt. Also, Rey is standing behind Kylo. They're both pulling it towards themselves, so it has a freaking double pull, which will definitely give it more momentum. And fuck yeah, of course Kylo dodges that shit. He could have been killed. No, but in all seriousness, there is nothing wrong with this shot. It's the moment that Rey begins to see herself as something special, that she has a place in this world, and Kylo realizes that Rey is a possible rival. It's a beautiful moment, not just visually, but also for the story. So now they fight, and for the whole first half of the fight, Kylo is dominating her. And no, not in the kinky way that you Reylo shippers get off to. Like, skill-wise, he's dominating her. He's far ahead of Rey, and you can see this since she's on the back foot the whole fight. However, this fight also shows us Rey's physical ability as she's able to keep her distance from Kylo pretty well. Someone who has learned footwork and how to engage people in combat is very difficult to get away from, so yeah, Rey isn't just some measle in this fight. And I think that's her greatest strength in this fight, because Finn tried to overpower Kylo, which is a plan he could never have succeeded in, because it's Kylo fucking Ren. However, Rey is playing the defensive game and it's working a lot better for her. When they reach the sword lock, it becomes clear to see that Kylo was never trying to kill Rey. In this moment, Kylo could easily overpower Rey and either push her into the crater behind her or just kill her normally. But he doesn't. He asks her to join him. He says he can teach her. She's a valuable asset to him, so he's not gonna go all out fighting her in case he kills her. Kylo had a job to bring Rey back to Snoke alive, so he never really went full throttle against her. Looking back, it makes sense why Snoke wanted Rey alive, and yeah, while I'm not gonna pretend it was all planned, it adds up that Snoke, aka Palpatine, would want his very powerful granddaughter and heir alive. Finn was useless to Kylo, so he had his fun there, but yeah, he never had an intent to kill Rey. He could have, but he didn't, and this made him complacent. We know he has a hard time controlling his emotions. We see that earlier in the movie, so yeah, he gets too cocky here. He allowed Rey enough time to calm herself and get in touch with the Force. When he mentioned the Force, Rey realized that she can use it to her advantage. She used it quite well before, so why wouldn't she try it again? Also, before you call this moment a Mary Sue moment, just remember that Luke blew up the Death Star simply because he believed in the Force as well. This moment mirrors that moment in A New Hope. It's fine to call Rey a Mary Sue, you just gotta be fair and consistent with your judgment. Anyways, Rey opens up to the Force and she counters Kylo. And remember, at this point, Kylo's physically exhausted and his body is damaged. He's bleeding from his stomach and he's grown too overconfident. Rey gains the upper hand. This is not unheard of. Luke gains the upper hand against Vader, who is far better and more experienced than him, because he taps into the dark side against an old man robot. Obi-Wan wins against Anakin Skywalker, who's also stronger than him because Anakin grew too arrogant and rushed in. Perhaps it's in the Skywalker blood. But yeah, just because someone is better and stronger and more skilled doesn't mean they can't lose their momentum. Kylo is suddenly bombarded with powerful strikes from someone who's in a far better physical state at the moment. And yeah, he loses. It's not a plot hole, it's not a mistake. Rey saw her opportunity and took it against a weakened Kylo. So yes, the Rey versus Kylo Ren fight makes complete sense. On paper, Kylo would win a fair fight any day of the week, but this is just not a fair fight. Kylo is seriously wounded and he's emotionally and physically exhausted. He never even tried to kill Rey, and yes, his complacency in the fight cost him the victory. I've never been able to understand people who hate on this movie because of this fight. Just because it's not over the top and flashy and lengthy like the ones from the prequels, which are mostly great by the way, don't get me wrong. But these people believe that it doesn't have any meaningful purpose. It bothers me that I even have to make a video on this, because if you just watch the movie like a normal person and listen to others' rational arguments, instead of having a stick up your ass, then you'd realize that this fight is just a decent fight scene that makes sense and doesn't have anything wrong with it. And if you dislike it because you think it's feminist propaganda that the woman beats out the man, then honestly fuck you. Guess you don't like your mom then. It is of course only a rather small percentage of fans who actually have a problem with this fight scene, but it's also a very vocal minority. And so yeah, I just had to finally explain why this scene isn't a mistake and why it absolutely makes sense. Anyways, I hope you all enjoyed this video. As always, if you disagree or agree with me, then leave your own opinions down in the comments, but please keep it civil. If you want more film related content, then don't forget to subscribe to the channel. I upload at least one video a week. Also, I've been thinking for a long time about starting a gaming channel on the side because it would allow me to put out more content for you guys since these videos take so long to make. Of course, I won't be able to do this until I get my things from Kenya, which could take months, but yeah, it's just theoretically, but hopefully will happen in the near future. Would you guys want that? Leave your answers down in the comments, please. Also, join my Discord Discord for riveting discussions. The link will be down in the comments. Anyways, thank you all so much for watching. I hope you have a wonderful day. Stay safe and peace out.